Hey, good morning. Rogers Mobile Loop here, and we're going to do a kind of a short, informal video on frequently asked questions that we get about kind of what we do during oil changes and what we, the items we check and how we check them and what we're looking for and all that kind of stuff. It's a common theme where our customers, our fleet accounts, they want to know what's going on with their trucks and they want to know what we're checking, and so we thought we would address that. It's going to be a long form video. We have a list of questions that we've been asked over the last 14 years and that are common recurring questions, and yeah, we just like to take some time. We're going to take a look at this truck here. This is one of our employees' trucks, and we're going to just go through the whole thing and show you what we do in each different part of the vehicle and what is part of a normal oil change or maintenance checkup. Steven's going to be in the background here, and he's got his list of questions and he's going to be asking those. I'm going to try to remember to repeat them so you guys can hear the question, and then we'll just discuss it. And again, this will be kind of an informal time, but hopefully it answers many of the questions you're going to have now or in the future. So, all right, Steven, what is question number one?
What does Rogers Mobile Lube and Tire do, and what makes us unique?
All right, so what do we do and what makes Rogers Mobile Lube unique? In general, we provide fleet maintenance. We designed our company under the idea that we service commercial fleets. They have different needs than personal vehicles do. Some of those needs are, they need to be being used during the day. So we show up really early in the morning, 5 a.m. most of the time, and we start servicing vehicles to have them ready by 8 or 8:30 when the employees need those vehicles to be out on the job site. We service many different things on the vehicle, everything from your oil changes to just about any fluid in the vehicle, belts, batteries, filters, from fuel filters, air filters, coolant filters once in a while when vehicles have those, and then brakes and tires. So both of our trucks have tire machines, mounting machines, balancing machines, air compressors on there so we can deal with tire pressures and that sort of thing, and then everything to do with patching and tire repair. So we're really a full service tire shop on these trucks also. The things that make us unique, the other part of that question, are our ability to be mobile. So when we change oil, there's no bringing the vehicle to us. We always take our vehicle to our clients. So that may be out on a job site, it may be at their shop early in the morning or after their working hours, or it could be on a weekend. If an employee takes a company van home or a company truck home, we might go to their house and do it there while they're off at a kid's soccer game. So we're very flexible with that. So that mobile aspect is something that makes us very unique. One of the other things is we have what we call our magic software, and this software, we plug in the vehicle information, and the software will track how far that vehicle is driving, and it tells us when the next service is due. One of the special things that we do is a 15,000 mile or 1 year, whichever comes first, oil change, and we can know within a week or two exactly when that vehicle is coming due, and so we can then call and schedule that next service with our client. When we've done surveys in the past about what the favorite thing is that our clients love about our company, that software is number one, because they say they don't have to worry about it. We just come out there and change the oil because we know it's coming due before they do. The third thing that really sets us apart is the product we use. We use a brand of oil called AMSOIL, and AMSOIL is special because it's a long life synthetic. And what I mean by long life is a normal oil change is between 3,000 and 5,000 miles, that you kind of used to hearing that from your local lube shop. Ours will last 15,000 miles or a full year, whichever comes first. That's very unusual. With that, we have a special filter that goes with it that lasts as long as the oil does. And what that does is keeps your fleet in service longer. You're not having to pull it out, run it down to the lube shop every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. You will see us come to you and change the oil on that vehicle every 15,000 miles. So really you go about 5 times as long. Between the mobile, the software, and the product, the AMSOIL product, those 3 items really set us apart from any other lube shop, oil change outfit that you will experience. Steven, next question.
What days do we schedule And what locations can we go to?
All right, so I mentioned before the schedule at 5 a.m. We work Tuesday through Saturday. Tuesday through Saturday, 5 a.m. till really whatever time we schedule out to. And sometimes, our day may finish up at 11 a.m. and some days it may finish up at 6 p.m. It just depends on the workload for that day. Stephen, refresh me. What was the other half of that question?
What locations can we go to?
What location? Okay, and I did kind of allude to that earlier, but locations we can go to are our client's shop. If they have a business location, we'll show up there. We can come to their home if that's easier for them. With larger fleets, sometimes employees take vehicles home, and in that case, we'll schedule with that employee and either meet them at a job site or at their home on the weekend. Really, whatever's convenient for the company. Every company's different. There's all kinds of different flavors. We have some that they have gates or codes to get into, and key boxes and different security measures, and so we become familiar with that and work within that scope also. Okay. Next question.
What do we consider fleets? How many vehicles does that be considered a fleet?
Yeah, so this is a common question we get is, Riley, I only have 1 or 2 vehicles, and that's not really a fleet, so I don't think it's a good time for you to come service our company vehicles. And the truth is, we have a ton of clients that have 1 vehicle. We service about 220 clients here in the Valley, different fleets, ranging from 40, 50 vehicles down to singles. And through these 220 different clients that we currently serve, our average is about 4.5 vehicles per fleet. So we're very accustomed to the smaller companies. One of the big things that we really specify is if a company approaches us and they're over 50 vehicles, we generally won't take that client on. That's getting kind of past our scope of what our vision for our company is. And so we want small local fleets with 50 vehicles or less is kind of who we serve. So yep, if you have that single vehicle fleet, bring it on. We like that.
And we recommend something based off maintenance check, oil change, or ASAP. How do we determine what that is?
Okay, so the question here is, on our recommendations, we have a service report that will come with every service we do. And that service report tells you what we did to the car, and then has some notes at the bottom for anything that we found while we were inspecting that vehicle. And one of the question is, what do the different notations mean? We will have, if there's a recommended service to be performed, say a dirty air filter, we will rate that with either ASAP, which is as soon as possible. We recommend changing that now because it's either damaged or it's just completely packed full of dirt. Needs change ASAP. We possibly will have what we call recommend at next maintenance check, which is, maintenance checks for us generally mean halfway through the oil change. I'd mentioned before the 15,000 miles or 1-year oil change. 90% of our clients have us do a maintenance check in the middle of that, and that would be at 7,500 miles or 6 months. We would go in there and re-inspect the vehicle, and if the air filter is dirty but it's still got some life left, normally we're going to recommend next maintenance check. We'll already be showing up, coming there for another thing. We might as well bring one with us and we can plan ahead. Then the other recommendation that we might have would be next oil change, and that just means, hey, say we see transmission fluid that's starting to kind of get dark, but it's still got some life left. We'll recommend maybe the next oil change, maybe 15,000 miles from now. So when you see our service reports and you see those annotations that say ASAP or maintenance check or next oil change, that's what that means, is we see it coming, but it's not due yet. And that is the way we do things around here, rather than turn it into the drama club and make it sound like it's due right now and your car's going to explode if it doesn't get changed right now. We will tell you kind of what we think it's looking like and what we think the projection for that maintenance procedure is. Next question, sir.
What is engine flush and what does it do?
What is engine flush? Okay. Engine flush. This is the AMSOIL engine and transmission flush. Do we look good there? We use this whenever we take a vehicle from a conventional oil to our synthetic oil. We run this cleaner through it. Okay? And what this cleaner does is it goes in there and it dissolves all the sludge and the buildup, the waxy kind of junk that builds up inside of an engine, and it takes that and pushes into the old oil filter. After that has a chance to clean, then we take the old oil filter off, we change the old oil, we put the new fresh synthetic in with the special new AMSOIL synthetic filter, and now we're dealing with the clean engine. AMSOIL is what we call a high detergent engine oil. High detergent just means it's cleaner. It's going to go in there, it's going to keep this stuff clean. It's going to keep the sludge and the other byproducts of conventional oil from attaching to the cylinder walls, and it'll keep it all we'll call in suspension. And in suspension just means it stays in the fluid instead of attaching to other stuff. That'll circulate that through into the filter, and the AMSOIL will keep it clean from then on. So this engine and transmission flush is only done the first time that we do an oil change. When we use this, we don't charge you for that. The engine and transmission flush on an oil change is free of charge, because we know it's just going to be something done one time, and it'll make you a happier customer if we use it. So that is free of charge. The next time, the second time we do your oil change, it's unnecessary. We won't do that again.
How do you properly check oil level?
All right, so properly checking oil level. This is a commonly misunderstood thing where we'll be working on vehicles, and once in a while we'll get a phone call where somebody says, hey, there's the oil's low, and we go out there to check it, and lo and behold, it's not. It's right where it should be. And there's a couple things that can happen with this. Okay, one of them is when a vehicle's full of oil and the engine has just been running, especially when the engine's cold, oil gets pumped up and it coats the whole inside of that engine, and that will use up sometimes as much as 3/4 of a quart. And so then if you pull the dipstick at that point, while the engine has just barely been running and all those parts are still covered in oil, you get a false reading. You get one that shows it low because all that oil's up top still, hasn't drained back down into the pan where it needs to be. So the proper way to check oil is to do it when the engine has been sitting for, say 5 to 10 minutes or longer. The vehicle should be level as possible. And what I want to show here is that we have put this truck just a couple notches up our little bumpy ramp here to make sure it's on a level surface. So as we check the oil, we get a nice level oil pan that's going to give us a proper reading. Then the other thing is you want to pull the dipstick out of the vehicle, and I've got the dipstick here. Wipe this thing off, reinsert it all the way back in there, then pull it out, then read it. Okay. And Brendan, I'm not sure if you can get this to focus on these little hash marks here. I did take another picture that I'll show in the video if we need to.
He looks good enough.
But what we want, this end would be dipped down into the oil, and we want that oil to be right up here to right where my thumbnail is, right at the top of those hash marks. On most vehicles, from the bottom of these hash marks to the top of these hash marks indicates 1 quart of oil. So if that is the case, you can see if I go down 1 quart, I'm going to be down at this bottom line. If I go down 2 quarts and I go that much farther, it won't even be on the dipstick. That can freak people out. Okay, if you show up in there, you might only be 1.5 quarts low, but you're not showing on the dipstick. That can look like there's no oil in the vehicle. But I assure you, if there was no oil in the vehicle, they'd be having more problems than just needing to check your oil. So to reiterate, when we check the oil, you're going to pull this dipstick out of the car. You're going to wipe it off with a rag, get it nice and dry, put it back in there, clear to the base where it seats up against here, bring it back out, and then check the oil level. We're going to run over here, and I'm going to stick this in this truck right now and let you see where the oil level's at. Steven, you didn't know this was coming, did you?
Oh, it might be low.
The problem with this truck is I might not be able to reach. Need to be taller. Okay. Brendan, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're just a touch above. A touch above is okay. What you don't want to be is way above. Being way above is actually worse than being way below. Obviously there's limitations to being way below. You don't want to be empty, but if you're too far, you have too much oil in there, it can start getting up into the spinning crankshaft of the motor. It'll foam the oil, it'll cause heat buildup, and it can cause engine failure just as much as being low on oil can. So really, if we can keep it between these marks, that would be ideal. The little bit that this was above, it's okay. We're not going to freak out about that. But if it was 1 inch or 2 inches above, we would want to drain some oil out of there.
How do you properly install an oil filter?
All right, so how do we properly install an oil filter? Thank you, sir. So oil filters come with this little gasket on here, and you see, I don't know if you can see this, but this gasket, although it's kind of set down in this little groove, can be kind of loose. And if we take this thing with a dry seal like this and we stick it on an engine and we tighten it up, it can wrinkle this seal. And if this seal gets wrinkled, it'll create a gap and it'll create a leak. Okay, so when we install an oil filter, we always lube this up. We'll put a little bit of fresh oil on there. We'll tighten this thing down. And something to really pay attention to is, how do you tighten it down? Right here's the instructions. It says right here, put a little drop of oil on there. Thread it in till it touches, and then 3/4 turn past that. Every oil filter on the market has instructions like this. It's either on the filter itself, or it's on the box, or it's on the company's website, and it's based on the thread size, the thread pattern within the oil filter, and how tight that needs to go.
How do you know what to grease?
Okay, so the next question is grease. What do we do with it, and when do we use it, and how do we use it, and how do we know where to use it, and all those things. So for this one, we're going to walk over here to the vehicle, and I'll show you kind of some general places where we would look for grease zerks. It's always going to be on joints that move. Okay, so not every vehicle has them. Most passenger cars don't have them. Most half-ton pickups, late model half-ton pickups, don't have them. This truck we're working on today is a 3/4 ton truck. The truck I'm standing next to here is a commercial vehicle. They both have grease zerks. So we have a very visible one that I want to show you, and then we'll crawl underneath and I'll show you some different places where you might see grease zerks, and the places we're going to be looking for them.
And I just want to say, a lot of the 3/4 ton trucks, newer ones, don't have them either now.
Okay. Yeah, no, the newer we get, the more sealed bearings we're starting to see, and the more sealed bushings and joints we're starting to see, and that's both good and bad. It's nice to be able to lubricate them, but the vehicle manufacturers are going away from that more and more, but we still do see it on a pretty regular basis. So let's grab a grease gun and a rag, and then we'll get over here and show you how to grease a zerk and what we're looking for. And I don't know how to use this one. This doesn't have an air attachment.
Ooh, he actually has to work.
All right, so here's the grease zerk right here. And again, you wouldn't be able to tell that that's a grease zerk if you didn't know what you were looking for, okay? I told you it's on articulable joints, on movable joints, and this is the upper ball joint. Back here on the back of these A-arms, this is movable also, but there's no grease zerk on these ones, okay? Now, I want to show you something here. When we go to grease these things, if we just stick the grease gun on here and start pumping, we're going to pump a bunch of dirt down into that grease zerk. So we don't want to do that. So the way this works is we take our handy dandy rag and we will go through here and scrape this crud out, and we will clean the top of that zerk off and make this thing nice and clean. And you see that little ball valve there in the center? That's an actual little check valve, and that's what keeps the grease from coming back out. Okay, right here we put the grease gun on, it snaps in place, and we give it a few pumps. And what we're looking for, if you film down under here, Brendan, I don't know if you can see that, is we want this rubber right here to swell up, but we don't want grease coming out of it. So that's it right there. Looks like maybe on the back side there might be a leak in that, because that came out really easy. Yep, a little bit of grease came out. Nope, that's old stuff. But that popping noise you heard is when we stop pumping, for sure. And then what we'll do is when we take this off, we just leave that grease on the top of there, because that will catch any new dirt and stuff and keep it from getting into that ball valve. So we'll just leave that little blob of grease on there and walk away. It's and other grease zerks. Should we climb under the vehicle?
Sure.
All right, so we've moved down below the truck to the lower ball joint. This is straight down from where we were before. And right back here is another grease zerk. And again, it's covered in grease just like the other one was. So this is a common place to look. We'll look at all these other joints. Straight up above you, there's a joint right here, and generally right there is another grease zerk. Okay. On the other end of this thing wiggles. You see that? That's part of the way we know that there's possibly a grease zerk there, because it's movable. Right up here, on the other end of this shaft, this little rubber boot contains grease, and we put it in there right here with this grease zerk. Okay. On top of this, we follow this up. There's a steering joint right here. On top of that, there's a grease zerk. This one right here is commonly missed. It's something that we see lube shops will neglect it all the time. They won't get grease in there. On the other end of the same bar, the same things. These are mirror images on both sides of the truck. Sometimes, right down over here, we'll have an exposed U-joint. Now this truck doesn't have it, but sometimes there's an exposed U-joint right here on solid axle vehicles especially, and there will be grease zerks in the U-joints. Back here on the drive shafts, we're going to cruise back here, right up here in these U-joints. We always looking at these because although this truck didn't come with them from the factory, if one of these U-joints has been replaced, it may have a greasable one. My personal truck did not come with grease zerks, but when I replaced the U-joints, I put greasable ones in it, so now we have to be looking for that. So every time we're under here, we're looking at these places that they're commonly at. So sometimes on the rear leaf springs of the truck, you'll see grease zerks. So there's all these common places that we're looking, and when our technicians are underneath their truck, they're going to be checking those places to make sure they're getting all the grease zerks lubricated that need it. Steven, next question.
Do you look for leaks and any problems that are not listed on the checklist?
Yes. So the question is, do we look for leaks and stuff that is not necessarily on the checklist? So on our checklist, on our service reports, you will see all kinds of things from engine oil level, condition, and whether or not it's recommended to be changed, that sort of a thing. But you won't see a space there for leaks or that sort of a thing. So one of the things we're looking for when we get underneath the vehicle is something that maybe is a problem, not necessarily a problem we can solve, but something that you're going to need to get taken care of. So for example, on this truck, right here, Brendan, can I see that? I'll hold the camera for just a second. Right up here, you can see this wetness on the frame. Okay. It looks like, if you look way up high up there, way back up in there, right where my finger's at, that it looks like it's coming from the brake master cylinder. It's just a little drippage coming from there. We're going to do what I just did and kind of follow the way up there, see where the high point of the leak is, and then we're going to let you know where that leak is coming from, or where we think it's coming from, and then we'll put that on the service report. You can see where that's dripped on the frame right here, but you can also see right down here there's some more. This is a wet spot in the frame, and so you'll see this in the notes at the bottom of your service reports. One of the other places that we may see a little bit of a leak, especially on these Chevy trucks, is right here where my finger's pointing, is the bracket that goes up here, these cooler lines that go up to the radiator to cool the oil. This is a common leak point we see quite often. This one's not leaking bad, but it's definitely seeping, and so again, you'd see that on your notes. Was the question was when we're changing oil, Stephen?
Just what are, do we look for leaks and any other problems that are not listed on
okay
the report?
Yeah, so this is an example of that. Commonly we'll be looking, say, around the transmission pan here, where we would look for leaks around that. This one looks great. Differential seals. This is the front differential on this truck. Right up in here we would be looking for leaks. right down here at these boots, if they were torn, that sort of a thing, would be looking for that. If we saw any joints like right here that were, I'm gonna mess that up, Brent. I'm gonna let you film again. If we saw some of these, boots that were torn, or we saw joints down here that had damage or play in them, all these kind of things are gonna be stuff we're gonna let you know about. Again, it's not in our normal checklist of things, but we are your eyeballs on these vehicles. And again, we're human, we don't always catch everything, but we sure try. All right, so we have cut again, and I'm back down underneath this pickup. And we're gonna talk about how we check differentials and what fluids we use and that sort of stuff. And so the rear differential here is the rear gears of the truck that we, as part of our oil change or maintenance check service, we're always checking these, and we're going to check them for fluid level, fluid condition, and then we're going to be looking at the end seals, and the, right here is a pinion shaft seal, making sure there's no leaks on this one. This one is dry as a bone, looks fantastic. What we need to do is we need to get in here to this plug. This is the fill plug, and we're going to pull this thing out and check the level. Okay. So in this case, it's just the 3/8" square ratchet head that we need to change this. We're gonna come in here and just do a little pop, 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 break this guy loose. Get any loose crud off there so it doesn't fall down inside. Take that out now. We can tell just by the way that leaked out of there that is very full. Got plenty of fluid in it. That fluid looks really good. One of the things I want to bring up is we use these blue gloves on purpose because it shows through the oil very well, and we can see that the condition of that is very clear. It's very, very nice. Now, if I took this plug out and fluid didn't come out, I'm going to take something, in this case I've got a little zip tie here, and I'll just put it down in there and I'll touch the fluid, and then I'll wipe it on my glove, and I'll get to see what it looks like from there. Most of these differentials, the oil fill is right to the bottom of this hole, so you just fill it up until the oil level reaches the bottom of that fill hole. Some differentials, the specification is a ½ inch below that fill hole, so in the case of one of those, when you pull this plug out, nothing comes out, and you need to feel down in there to see where the oil level's at. As part of our program, working with AMSOIL, we have a lookup where we can go on and look up where every different vehicle fill level is, and so we can find fill levels, we can find torque specs for these plugs, we can find all the information that we need to know what fluid goes in this particular differential in this truck. That way we put the right stuff in there so we're not misfilling or misapplying a fluid. We want to make sure we put the right fluid in the right hole. Okay, next question.
What do we do if we have a spill happen?
Okay, so the question is, what happens if we spill? That's a common question we get, because sometimes, you can kind of see here in the background, we're in a subdivision right now, and there's a lot of times we're doing in someone's parking lot or in their driveway, or generally not driveways. We usually move vehicles out of driveways, but sometimes in their shop. We have certain customers that have indoor shops. And sometimes, we're human, and sometimes we drip oil on the ground, or we have every once in a while we drop something and we'll spill, and that's just a fact of life. We have to deal with that. So on board the trucks we have spill kits. We have what's commonly referred to as kitty litter. It's an absorbent material that we can put down to suck that up. We grind that in there, get that all dried up, and then we scoop that up. It's a pretty easy situation. If it gets on the vehicle, we use brake parts cleaner to clean that off of all the metal bits down there, and we clean up our mess is the point. And so is it common that we have spills? No, but yeah, it's a part of our life. We do a lot of work, and every once in a while we drip on the ground, and if we do, we clean it up. That's our job. We talked about what happens if we spill. We'll look right there. Okay, I just spilled a couple drops of oil. As soon as I took that plug out, there came the oil. We know it's full, we know the condition's great. I'm gonna, while I'm thinking about it, tighten up my plug. We don't need to put much pressure on there, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna take this brake parts cleaner. I'm gonna sop up this oil as much as I can. Try not to spray the camera. We're gonna hit it just like that, and we're just gonna sop it up. And you'll see that'll evaporate very quickly. That is gone. If we ever need to hit it again, or if we ever need to put some oils over on it, we'll do that. But that's the kind of thing we're talking about. That'll happen once in a while. It cleans up super good. Right up here on the vehicle, I'll clean up any drops that would potentially drip later. How do you check brakes, okay? And there's certain things we're looking for with brakes. Now, if you come down here with me, we've taken this wheel off so you can kind of see what we're looking for. One of the things we're looking for is any grooving in here. Now you can see different colorations in here, and this is totally normal, but if there's a big lip right up here at the top, that means, you know, this metal's worn away from long years of use, and that could be, it's just getting too thin and it can warp and can have problems. We'd be looking for that, or any deep grooves that have been cut into here, which would be indication of brake pads being worn out past the braking material and into the metal, and that'll start really cutting into those rotors. So we're looking at that. The other thing we're looking for, I don't know if you can see this through the little window here. Can you see that on camera, Brendan?
Not quite.
Okay, come over here, you can see pretty good. One of the other things we're looking for is right down in here.
I think this is the part we want to light for.
All right, so down inside of here, I don't know if you can see that. Can you get the light in there, Steve or Brendan?
Yeah.
We're looking at the gap right down in here from the metal part of the brake, what I'm touching right now. Can you see my finger in there? This is the back of the brake pad, the actual backing material. And then right down in here, you can see it's about this wide. Right up against the brake rotor itself is the brake pad. And we're looking for how much pad is left on that. And we want to make sure that there's at least 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters of pad left. If there's not enough, then you start to risk grooving into those rotors and causing damage to the rotors, which equals more expensive repairs. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure that, or take a look at it and kind of see roughly what percentage of life is left on that thing. On the service report, you're going to see, say, you know, 20%, 30%, 50%. So you kind of have a gauge of how long until new brakes are due. If we get to the point where we see one that's worn, the pads are gone, we're going to let you know for sure, but we'll start letting you know early, hopefully. But mechanical things happen, and sometimes we'll get stuck pistons in these calipers, and one of the pads will be severely worn more than the other one. We may be calling that to your attention, but if you get in here and look and you see one pad's still almost full and the other one's gone, well, there's some more stuff that needs to happen, and so we'll quote new calipers perhaps in that situation, new rotors if there's any grooves in there and they need to be replaced. But the recommendation for replacing your brakes is going to also include a quote for new ones, new parts, whatever needs to be done. Just pads, hopefully, but if it needs to be pads and rotors, and sometimes even a caliper, that's happened a few times over in the past, we'll have quotes for all that stuff right there on your report, so you can see not only what needs done, but how much it's going to cost to get it fixed. Okay. Next question, Stephen. Checking tires. What are we looking for? First thing we're looking for is tire pressure. Okay, and we find that right inside the driver's side door right here. This little placard that tells us how much to fill the tires to, and this is the manufacturer's recommendation. Now the cool thing is within our software, we have a place to do custom tire pressure. So if you as the driver or the owner want something different, for example, we have one customer that has a 1-ton diesel pickup, and it recommends 80 psi in the rear and I think 75 in the front. He doesn't like that for his normal day-to-day because that ride's pretty rough, and so he has us film the 55 both ends, and if he's going to pull a trailer, he'll bring the tire pressure up. So we can customize that to whatever you want as the owner, but our general rule of thumb is we're gonna do what's on that door. Okay.
And I'll add to that too, some aftermarket tires don't go up to like 80 psi, so we want to make sure we're checking the sidewall if they have an aftermarket setup and make sure we're not exceeding the pressure limit for that tire.
Correct. Good, Brendan. So once we have the tire pressure properly filled to whatever that recommendation is or whatever you desire, we're going to start looking at wear. Now on this vehicle, we've obviously changed vehicles from what we were working on before. These tires are in pretty good shape. They've been on here for a couple of years, but you're starting to see some scallops right here, and you see these kind of darker spots. And if I rub down this, I can feel this kind of wavy, scallopy section here, and it's all right here on this outer shoulder. The rest of the tire feels perfectly square and smooth, and these are all the same height, and everything's feeling great. So we know we've got a little bit of an issue with either maybe a little bit of alignment, or I know on this vehicle the struts probably could use replaced, and so a little bit of alignment being off will cause this maybe the tire to toe in a little bit, and then it causes a little skip, and it's super minor. You'd never feel this, but over time the tire will show it. And so this is an indication of a minor problem, maybe a little bit of an alignment. Again, I think this one is struts that need replaced, but we're looking for that, and we will let you know kind of what we think it is. If we, for whatever reason, don't know what's causing it, we'll have you go down to an alignment shop and have them check it out in depth with their equipment. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to be measuring the tires. Right here, you see in this little groove, there's this little bump. This is called a wear bar. There's another one right here, and we're looking to make sure the tires are never below that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this little gauge, and this gauge here shows us how many 30/2 of an inch of tread there is on the tire. And we're going to put this thing right across the two treads, tap it down in there. This little needle falls down inside, and it'll tell you, or tell us, how many 30/2 are on there. And in this case, it's 6. Okay, 6 30/2. This tire, I think when it was brand new, came with 11 30/2, so we know this thing's worn down approximately halfway. Okay, so we have 6 here. We'll move over here to the middle, we'll check it again. There's still 6 there. Move over here to the outside, there's about 6.5 there. So as this thing goes across, we can tell, we knew before because it's wearing more here, that's a little uneven wear, but a half 30/2, 1/64 of an inch is not that much. So overall, this is pretty healthy, but there is an indication of a slight problem. So we're going to be checking all those things. We're also going to be checking if we have one tire that has really low pressure for some reason. And we're gonna look that one over a little closer to see if there's a puncture. So there may be a nail or a screw, or a valve stem that's bad, and we're going to be looking that over to make sure that there's not a repair that needs to be done. If there is a repair that needs to be done, we're going to take care of that right there on the site. So
how do we determine what can and cannot be repaired?
Determining what can and can't be repaired, that's another question. Thank you, sir. On a tire, it is illegal for us to repair anything from this groove outward. Okay, through this corner here is where the steel belts come through, and if that gets punctured through this section out here or in the sidewall, we can't legally fix that. We have to replace that tire. If it's within side of these 2 outer grooves, we can repair that. And fortunately, it seems most are punctures there, but periodically we get one that's in that outer shoulder. Can't repair that. Okay, what was the next question, Stephen?
How do we inspect the fuel filter?
Okay, so how do we inspect the fuel filter? And that's always a good question, because fuel filters aren't something you can see inside of. Okay, they're a canister. They are sealed up. They just have lines going to them, and you can't really inspect a fuel filter other than just an external visual inspection. So commonly we get into fuel filters and we find those things are rusted, sometimes to the point where fuel's leaking out of them. In that case, obviously we're going to recommend ASAP. If we see one that we can tell has been there a while but is still, on the externals in pretty good shape, but we don't know as the service provider when the last time that thing was done, we'll talk to the owner, we'll find out what you know about your vehicle and when it was done. If it hasn't been done, fuel filters as a general rule are very inexpensive. We generally recommend about every 30,000 miles having one of those done. When we're talking diesels, especially the newer ones, fuel filters are a different animal. Those things we recommend being done at the same time as the oil change. So it's some of the diesel vehicles we can go as far as 20,000 miles or 1 year with our oil. That's about generally when they recommend having the fuel filters done on those. Diesel fuel filters Generally, in most of the newer trucks have 2 of them. There'll be one up in the front by the engine, one in the back by the rear tire, or fuel tank kind of down in that zone. In that case, we'll replace both of them, but we recommend doing that much more often. Diesels are very finicky about fuel filters, and it's very expensive if you clog one up and starve a pump or a lifter pump or your injectors or plug those things up. It's super expensive to fix, so we keep up on those ones, not at 30,000 but 15 to 20,000 generally.